Welcome to Wine, Whiskey, and Song, where we explore the connections we make with wine, with whiskey, and with music. Here's Andy Wesley and Tom Roper.
Hi, everybody. I'm Andy Wesley. This is Tom Roper. Welcome to another episode of Wine, Whiskey, and Song. Today, we're going to start our series of more of a deep dive in terms of wine topics, and we're going to start talking about the grape. Remember, our four components of every wine are the grape, the soil, the climate, and the human element. And today, when we talk about grape, we're actually going to taste two wines, one being the 2021 Louis Jadot Chablis, just their normal AC Chablis, and the other of which being the 2021 Sonoma-Cutrer Sonoma Coast Chardonnay. And when we talk about the grape, it's important to understand that there's really a couple of things that are important about grapes. You can make wine from any fruit. Wine is the fermented juice of fruit. But we usually use grapes. Any idea why we use grapes rather than using other fruits?
I'm assuming it's sugar content for fermentation to create the alcohol.
Right? Yep. So we have fermentation is yeast eating sugar to form alcohol. A grape actually has a larger concentration of sugar in it than any other fruit. So the ratio of sugar to water in a grape is higher than it is in any other fruit. So when we go to that fermentation step, it's going to be easier to convert sugar to alcohol because we have more. That's a great point. The other thing that's really important to understand about grapes is that grapes come in a number of flavors. We call those varietals. Chardonnay is a varietal. Sauvignon Blanc is another white varietal. Pinot Grigio is another white varietal. Gewürztraminer is another white varietal. And by having a number of different flavor combinations, those different types of grapes actually work better in different sorts of climates. So we'll find that Chardonnay, as an example, likes cool climate. Chardonnay can grow anywhere. Chardonnay is actually the most planted grape in terms of breadth in the world. There's more Chardonnay planted in different places in the world than there is any other grape. As far as the amount of each grape that's planted, there's some controversy as to whether it's actually Chardonnay for white grapes or there's a Spanish grape called Arén, which they basically use to make a lot of brandy in the Jerez region of Spain. And there's a lot of Arén planted. But Chardonnay is certainly planted in more different places, and Chardonnay is more adaptable to a number of different climates than most other grape varietals are. When we talk about red grape varietals, we talk about Cabernet Sauvignon, which we'll taste later in the program. Cabernet really, really loves heat. Cabernet loves to cook and get really, really ripe. Pinot Noir is a softer, more delicate grape, and Pinot Noir really needs cool climate to grow. Chardonnay and Pinot Noir, because of that, tend to be planted in a lot of the same places. So Chardonnay and Pinot Noir both originated in Burgundy, which is the most famous spot in the world for Chardonnay and Pinot Noir. Chablis is a subcategory of Burgundy. And then we also see a lot of Chardonnay and Pinot Noir planted together in places like Sonoma, California, particularly Russian River and the Sonoma Coast, where this Sonoma-Cutrer comes from. And although there are a number of different components to talk about in terms of grape, those are the two most important things to understand. That a grape has a higher sugar content than any other fruit, and also that there are a number of different varietals. So we wanted to take a couple of different examples of Chardonnay today, one being from the Old World and one being from the New World, just to give you some context as to what those terms mean. The Old World, from a wine perspective, we consider Europe the Old World. France, Italy, Germany, Spain. And the New World would be the U.S., South America, Australia, New Zealand would all be considered part of the New World. And we'll see that there's a real difference in terms of Old World winemaking versus New World winemaking in terms of what things are the most important. when we get together next time and talk about soil, and then the episode after that when we talk about climate, those two things combined together are what the French would call terroir, soil and climate, a sense of place. Old World wines tend to be about the place that they come from. New World wines tend to be more about the varietal that they come from and the winemaker. So when we look at this Sonoma Cutrer, it actually says Chardonnay on the label because we tend to identify wines in the New World based on the varietal that they come from. As you see on this Old World label, it just says Chablis. Chablis is a place. Chablis is a town where they happen to grow Chardonnay. And the word Chardonnay actually doesn't appear anywhere on this label because the French would basically tell you that if you know enough about wine to drink this wine, you should know that Chablis is where they grow Chardonnay.
Okay.
So we're going to taste through both of these wines. And Tom, I'm interested for you to tell me what you see as the difference between the two. Maybe some similarities and differences. The one in the front glass is the Chablis. The one in the back glass is the Sonoma Cutrer.
I feel like I'm getting a little bit more of like a from the Chablis, the front one, getting more of like more of an intense fruitiness, like a melon.
Okay,
Almost on the nose,
like a more bright acidic fruit.
Yeah,
Melon, citrus, whereas the Sonoma Cutrer maybe is a little bit more apple and a little bit more tropical fruit.
Yeah, maybe less. Yeah, less pungent. I wouldn't say pungent is the right term for it, but it's just like the volume is just a little bit lower, and maybe less bright. Maybe
the Chablis probably has more acidity to it when you taste it on the palate, crisper, cleaner. There is a familial similarity between these two wines. You can tell they're both Chardonnay because they both have that green apple, citrus. The Sonoma Cutrer has more of a tropical component to it because it's warmer in California than it is in Chablis.
Okay.
And the soil, as we'll talk about next time, where the Sonoma Cutrer is grown is a little bit more luscious, a little bit more less minerality, more voluptuous, volcanic, richer soils, and that's the big difference between these two wines.
Okay.
So what questions do you have about the grape?
Well, it's interesting. One of the things I didn't know was that Chablis is a place. It sounds silly, but I guess I always associated that with varietal. So that's I guess I should have known that. That's the thing. I thought it was more of a Bordeaux thing where they just didn't put the Cabernet, Merlot, Cabernet Franc on the label, where that is more of an old world thing. So I've certainly learned that, which is great.
Yeah, if you see a wine that is labeled Chablis, that wine is always Chardonnay. There is a little bit.
Burgundy is a Pinot Noir.
Red Burgundy is Pinot Noir. Right. So the general rule is in Burgundy, if it's white, it's Chardonnay. If it's red, it's Pinot Noir. Because one of the things that they wanted to do was really isolate soil differences and climate differences, which we're gonna talk about when we get together next time.
Okay. Yeah, that's pretty interesting. So I'm curious how the varietal, the Chardonnay, differs from like a Sauvignon Blanc, and I'm curious because I drink a lot of Sauvignon Blanc because I think it's a brighter, more. Maybe it's more acidic, more.
Well, and one of the things
mineral. There's kind of a mineral component to me. It seems like the New Zealand Sauvignon Blancs, at least. And that's tends to be my go-to. So I'm very familiar with that. Where Chardonnay, I just don't drink as much of. So I drink.
Yeah, one of the things that's interesting about Chardonnay, a lot of the things that you mentioned about Sauvignon Blanc, the a little bit of herbaceousness, that really bright, acidic component. Sauvignon Blanc and other grape varietals like Riesling, like Gewürztraminer, tend to have aromatic qualities on their own. Okay, Sauvignon Blanc smells like something. Riesling smells like something. One of the things that we talk about in terms of Chardonnay is Chardonnay really doesn't have an aromatic component to it on its own. It's got a lot of structure. It's got a lot of depth. It's got a lot of bright fruit to it. But it doesn't have that aromatic component that we like in white wines. And so we create that aromatic component with winemaking. So as an example, when you smell this Sonoma-Cutrer, you may get just a little bit of butter. And with a lot of California Chardonnay, you get a real buttery component to it. That is actually not the grape itself. That is winemaking. That is a process called malolactic fermentation. Okay. Malolactic fermentation is not really a fermentation. It's a conversion that takes malic acid, which is the kind of acid that you find in green apples, and converts it to lactic acid, which is the kind of acid that you find in milk or butter. Which is why my Chardonnay a lot of times will taste buttery. We also age Chardonnay in oak at times, whereas we'd almost never age Sauvignon Blanc in oak. As a matter of fact, sometimes Chardonnay is even fermented in oak to give it that rich, round component. So a lot of times you will see on a New World Chardonnay back label that a wine might be 100% malolactic fermentation and 100% barrel fermented. That style of Chardonnay was very, very popular in the U.S. About 10 or 15 years ago. We've tended to pull back and go with a more crisp, clean, fruit-forward style, but we still use malolactic fermentation a lot of times to give Chardonnay a bit of that aromatic component that it lacks on its own.
Okay. There was a Chardonnay that I bought in Michigan winery somewhere, 1 year, probably about 15 years ago, that it had that butteriness, just so much of it, but it also had a lot of toast that I'm assuming came from barrel aging.
Yes.
And there was an aftertaste of buttered toast, which is totally bizarre in a wine, it seemed to me at the time, and I loved it.
Yeah, and it's interesting because both of those things are really about winemaking more than they are about the grape itself. Okay. And a lot of times Chardonnay gets sort of tricked out with some of these techniques that we use, like malolactic fermentation, which gives that buttery richness to it, and then either barrel fermentation or a little bit of barrel aging, which gives that toast component that you found interesting in that Chardonnay.
Yeah, and it wasn't like, oh, this tastes like buttered toast, but you drink it and really there'd be this long after effect of hints of buttered toast, and
just sort of like lingering spiciness and things like that. That almost always in a Chardonnay comes from the winemaking, something to do. A lot of times when you get spice or vanilla, that's an indication that there's been some contact with oak one way or the other. So that's our discussion of the grape. When we get together next time, we're going to talk about soil and the things that soil does to influence a wine. As we transition into talking about the song that we're going to play for you today, from a wine perspective, I think that the thing that the grape brings to a wine is life. Very similar to the way that rhythm in a song brings life. It sort of brings that pop that allows everything else to happen, lays that first layer that is necessary as we build a song. And this song that we're going to play for you, I think, has a real interesting rhythmic texture to it.
Yes.
The story that I love to tell about this particular song is David Letterman once said that this song literally saved his life. As many of you may remember, Letterman had a heart attack and was off the Letterman show for quite a while as he recovered. And when he came back, his booking people asked him, who do you want as your first musical guest coming back from your heart procedure? And he said, why don't we have Foo Fighters come on? I love Foo Fighters. They're one of my favorite bands. Let's get Foo Fighters to come on. And they waited a couple of days, and then Dave called and said, okay, we're getting ready for the first show. How we doing on getting Foo Fighters? And his booker said, Dave, Foo Fighters are in Argentina playing a show on the night that you want to record. And Dave said, well, that's too bad. We'll need to find somebody else. And the booker said, the band has made arrangements to fly to New York to play this song for you and then go back to South America and do the show. Fast forward to the last episode ever of the David Letterman show, and the last thing that you literally saw on the David Letterman show was the band Foo Fighters playing this song that we're gonna play for you in a minute. Dave basically said, thank you and good night for the last time, and then turned it over to Foo Fighters to play this this song, which is called Everlong.
Just amazing. What an amazing band that they would do that.
Yeah.
They just they've set the bar pretty high when it comes to stuff like that, and the famous Dave Grohl breaks his leg and gets it set, and he's like, "Put me back on that stage."
Yeah, absolutely.
You come out here with me and hold my leg so I can finish this set because people came here to see us, and it just it blows my mind. It sets the performance bar so high. It's not like
absolutely.
A couple drops of rain. Oh, we're done. We're gonna quit. No. The Foo Fighters. Come on. They'll.
Yeah. And the other thing that's sort of amazing about this band, as many of you know, Foo Fighters was the band that was formed after Kurt Cobain died, and Nirvana obviously broke up. Dave Grohl was the drummer in the drummer in Nirvana, who became very famously the lead singer and main songwriter for Foo Fighters. And this is a song called Everlong.
I've waited here for you everlong. Tonight I've thrown myself into out of my head she sang. And waste away with me, down with me. Slow how you wanted it to be. Over my head, out of my head she sang. And I wonder, when I sing along with you, everything could ever be this real forever. Everything could ever be this good again. Only thing I'll ever ask of you, gotta promise not to stop when I say when. So I can breathe you in, hold you in. And now I know you've always been over my head, out of my head she sang. And I wonder, and I sing along with you. Everything could ever be this real forever. Everything could ever be this good again. Only thing I'll ever ask of you, gotta promise not to stop when I say when. Everything could ever be this real forever. Everything could ever be this good again. Only thing I'll ever ask of you, gotta promise not to stop when I say when. Everything could ever be this real forever. Everything could ever be this good again. Only thing I'll ever ask of you, gotta promise not to stop when I say when.
So we'll see you again on Wine, Whiskey, and Song. One last thing I'd like to mention. I happen to know that Dave Grohl likes to enjoy a nice bottle of wine, and I'd like to invite him to be the first ever guest on Wine, Whiskey, and Song. We'll see you again.
Cheers. Cheers.
Thanks for joining us. We'll be back soon with another episode of Wine, Whiskey, and Song. In the meantime, please like the video and leave any comments you have. And of course, subscribe to our channel.